You mean I can't just understand why I'm having an emotion?
Yes.
How far does this go?
Drama queen.
I thought I was done. I looked at my emotion and I analyzed it and I thought that was it. I thought that's all I had to do. And lo and behold, you can analyze it and understand it even more. I have been reading a book. It is called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Frack. Any Battlestar Galactica fans out there? In chapter 4, there's a section called The Self-Awareness Onion. And I thought it would be very appropriate to talk about that because it is something that we have talked about in the past, and I didn't realize how deep you could really get into the process of really becoming self-aware. And maybe you also haven't been really considering this. It's actually something that I think would be important for everybody, whether you have a problem understanding your identity or not. So he breaks it down into 3 layers. And the first 2 layers were the layers I was familiar with, and it's that 3rd layer that really gets to the heart of the matter. Layer number 1 is understanding your own emotions. It's being able to recognize it. It might be the point where you are asking yourself or saying to yourself, this makes me feel upset. So this is something that you could possibly be doing quite often, like checking in throughout the day. How am I feeling right now? What emotion do I have right now? I'll be honest, this is something that I don't do all the time. I only notice it when it becomes like really, really strong. Another thing I would say is that it is pretty easy to change your emotional state. You might recognize that you are bummed out and then you can do something about it. I would also describe it as being kind of shallow. You're just in the shallow end of the pool because if it's hit the surface of your consciousness, because that's what you're recognizing at the moment. And so it's like, who knows what's bubbling deep down in the depths, but at least at the top, you are expressing and feeling these emotions. And because it's so easy to change, this is why you can get an instant happiness. So if I'm feeling sad, I want to change it to feeling happy. And there's a variety of ways that I do that because it's just a band-aid of trying to not really analyze deeper and not have to look at it. So layer number 2 would be asking yourself, why are you feeling those particular emotions? This one takes a little bit more time. So while you're checking your emotions constantly, or I should say, potentially you're checking your emotions constantly, and that could change constantly, but really finding out why you're feeling a particular way, it may take months, it may take years to really figure out. It's not going to be a matter of just thinking about it once, because that will only give you like a little bit deeper understanding. You really need to process and think through it multiple times, because we know we'll lie to ourselves, we'll tell ourselves one thing, but it's really something else just to avoid it. And it's not, obviously we're not doing that on purpose. It's just it's a defense mechanism that we've created. So something that I didn't really consider before reading the book was that at this point you're really uncovering where you're finding success versus failure. It's really giving you insight as to what you are putting value on. And ultimately, when you can understand why you're feeling a particular emotion, that goes back to when we're talking about the cycle. If you can understand the cycle and what causes the cycle to continue, then you can stop that cycle. Kind of. We'll talk about the layer 3, which kind of is, it means really what happens is you stop that cycle, but that same cycle is going to come up somewhere else in your life. It may look a little bit different, but it will really be the same cycle, but in disguise as something else. And that is what leads us to layer number 3. Now, layer number 3, I will say, is new to me. And that's why I wanted to share it with you, because I know that a lot of times you'll hear those first 2 layers, and that is a very common place to start and stop. But this 3rd layer, it'll be the key to unlocking the freedom from being stuck in these cycles. So the 3rd layer is going to be personal values. And I would equate it to evaluating your beliefs. Going back to layer 2, it illuminates what you find as successful versus a failure. And layer 3 then goes back to another why question. Why do you consider that a success or a failure? It's how you're choosing to measure yourself and measure others, and measure yourself against others. You can also think of it as a standard, the standard that you're upholding, or a metric that you're using to evaluate the situation. So according to the book, most people, and I can also attest to this, most people are really bad at answering these why questions for the reasons I mentioned earlier. And that really is what that layer 3 is the root cause to everything above it. So for example, a very common statement is, I value honesty. But yet you look great. You don't look like a avocado and harvest gold paisley sofa threw up. And I should say that seeing the contradictions is one thing, but really evaluating the underlying cause between the contradictions, that's the tough part, because we are going to be full of contradictions, because sometimes we compartmentalize things. But understanding the value that you've assigned to the reason why you're doing those things, saying those things, feeling those things, that's really where the self-awareness is going to come from. And I have to say that, again, I am not speaking as someone who is an expert on this. I'm just wanting to share this information because I feel like this is a missing piece to the puzzle. I think that we'll really be able to understand ourselves at such a deeper level if we're really getting to the root cause. And that is what this third layer is going to do. So in the book, he provides a process to follow that basically is answering a few questions. And so I thought it would be helpful to kind of go through some of these questions. And I will tell you right now that obviously if it takes years possibly to understand layer number 2, then I would say it's going to take a lifetime to understand layer 3. And it's just something that you have to constantly be on top of, which it sounds so daunting. It sounds like impossible to me, but I think that we're worth it. I'm worth knowing and understanding myself. I've spent so much time trying to understand everyone else, everything else, and not really trying to understand myself. And I think that when you realize how important something is, then time is not an issue. If something is really important to you, you're going to do it. You're going to do it no matter what. Here are the 3 questions that you would be asking yourself. Once you get to that third question, you can keep asking that third question over and over again until you get to the bottom of it. I'm going to pick something that's kind of big, and I haven't gotten to the bottom of it, but I feel it's important for me to vocalize this and to just be honest with you guys, because this is something that I am dealing with, and I will continue to deal with this, I think, for the rest of my life. Let me start at the beginning. What is bugging me? I am afraid of what others think of me. The next question, why is it bugging me? When I'm thinking of this, I'm thinking, what failure is it attaching itself to? A self-imposed failure, something that I'm valuing as a failure. And so I would answer that with, it's bugging me because maybe they won't accept me. They could be anybody. I'm connecting that to that I have failed as a human. A human, in my mind, should be accepted and not rejected. So then the question is, why does this seem to be true? There's a story that comes to my mind that's really strong, and it comes from very early on in my life. And it's something that has really stuck with me because I will refer back to this memory. And this memory does give me grief. And I guess I feel a sense of loss. When I was in first grade, there was a new boy in class. His name was Herman. Because he was new, he didn't have any friends. And so I thought I would take it upon myself to help him find friends. And I don't remember all the details, but I do remember thinking that, and I do remember his response to me. It was something along the lines of, "Go away. I don't want your help, or I don't want you to help me." Essentially, I was rejected. All I know is that I felt bad. I wouldn't say that that is the main cause. It was just one of the incidents in my life that I connected this negative feeling. As I was going through and thinking these things, I realized that my whole goal in life has been to avoid these negative, uncomfortable feelings that I've been having. And a lot of times that means I am changing my behavior in order to be accepted, in order to be not cast away. So to me, then, what seemed to be success is that everything is good. Oh, I'll be good for this situation. I'll be good when working with others, and I'll make sure nobody hates me and nobody rejects me, and everything will be good. That is what I'm connecting to success. And that's not a very good measure of success. Just because things are good doesn't mean that they really are good. And then on top of that, if I am not being myself, how is that good? That's not good. This is at least allowing me to see that keeping things always in the positive is unrealistic, and it's not healthy, and it's not even valuable. It's really preventing me from learning about myself. I'm learning about others because I'm learning about how I can ping off of others, but I'm never going to learn more about myself, because I'm only going to be responding to the feedback of others. And that is it. That's not a complete person. But when I'm looking at both positive and negative in a situation, I'm not only going to learn about others, but I'm also going to learn about myself. Because if I allow things to be negative, and I keep using the word negative, but because of course we can look at negative as a positive, because here it is. I get to learn more about myself, and I get to really get true feedback. Feedback I'm collecting on myself, not just what others are giving me, but what I'm also getting from myself. So my metric of keeping everything positive, no, I need to get rid of that metric. That is not a measure of success. And so the whole point of this particular part of the book is to really make you think about what value are you holding on dearly to, whether it's a good value or not, and then what metric are you using in order to determine whether that value has been met, the standard, the metric. My goodness, I have learned so much, even through talking with you guys. I mean, it started with looking at rejection, which is something I definitely need to be thinking about, but then it kind of went deeper than that, deeper than I ever would have expected. I knew that I was going to talk about this story. I didn't realize it was going to bring up all these additional things. Okay. So I feel like we kind of went all over the place there, and I just appreciate you guys being here and being a part of this journey. I don't know if I would be able to do this without you guys, and I really, really appreciate you joining me. So that is all that we have for today. That was the self-awareness onion, and boy did this onion make me cry, and it probably will again. It's really tough to put yourself in these situations where you know that you're going to be crying. You know you're going to be digging in and looking at something that you really don't like looking at. I hope that you learned a little bit more on what it really means to have self-awareness. It is definitely a lot deeper than I was ever expecting. So thank you again for sticking around. And I hope that you join me next time when we look at something different. And with that, I will say goodbye. And in his example in the book, he